Guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, we're covering part 2 to the story I covered earlier, and I'm not going to do a big recap because you guys know what's going on, but where we left off, our guy was on the car ride to Georgia to see his dad, not the biological dad, the guy that he thought was his dad, to tell him the truth of what he's learned, and of course, then deal with his wonderful mother. So the story continues on. He says here, well, I sat my father down the porch of his house. I closed my eyes and I just said it out loud as quickly as I could. SSM, I don't know if you've ever seen a man's brain do a factory reset in the middle of a conversation, but that's the best way I can describe it. My father asked me to please repeat myself because he didn't think he heard me correctly. Yeah, I think I would say something like that too. My father then said that the information could not be true, that it couldn't be correct because he got a DNA test when I was a baby. My wife then asked him about what kind of DNA test it was. I come to find out that back in the 80s, DNA testing wasn't as advanced as it is today. Basically, they just match your blood markers, more or less, and if you matched, you were considered the father. They weren't really matching DNA, just blood result. Think like A blood plus B plus B blood makes whatever. Well, my father was crushed. Yeah, I can imagine. That poor guy. My father started mumbling to himself, saying things like, I gave up my military career for her. I left the army so I could support you guys. I wanted to make a career out of that. The longer we sat there, the more things started to dawn upon my father. Like all those years, my mom cheated on him, down for child support, so he could just keep increasing it. Well, my father is a pastor. Whoa. Holy crap. Well, that's not unheard of. There are military guys that go on being pastors. My dad had a guy he served with, and he eventually, after he got out of the service, became part of the clergy. I'm not sure, pastor or priest or whatever classification, but man of the cloth. And he's the most kind and gentle man you'll ever meet. But my father was furious. He told me that he wanted to offer. Whoa. Don't let his congregation, don't let the flock hear that. Shows he's human. I can't blame him for being pissed. Trust me, my father does not speak like that. Yeah, I can imagine. That man has never yelled at me once or shown any anger as long as I have known him. So your father became a pastor. That says something about who he is, his character. And yet your mom and family trashed him all those years. Maybe that's why he didn't, stand up for himself. I don't know. Who knows? Well, this is when the truth of my parents' marriage finally came out. After 38 years of him holding his tongue, my father finally said his side of the story. My father begins to tell me that, yes, the things that my grandmother and mother were saying about him were true to a degree. He didn't take care of my mother properly, and yes, he did leave her to fend for himself. He didn't leave her to fend for herself. Well, given the fact that she was a big giant cheater and all those other things, you kind of can't blame him. But he thought he had a son out there. But he explained the only reason why he did it was because every time he would leave to go to work, she would have another man over at the house. My father told me that the first time he caught my mother was because he had forgotten his military ID badge and couldn't get on the base. So he came back home to pick it up, and he was only gone for 10 minutes, and she already had another guy in the bed. Well, I don't blame him for leaving her. The thing is he can leave her, but he had to obviously take care of you, unless your mom was lying the whole time about him not financially helping or stuff like that, which obviously he'd have to do because they would track this guy down. But the mother here is awful and full of shit, and you guys are going to hear more. My father told me that he tried to make it work with my mother multiple times, but she was constantly cheating on him. So basically he left her and moved back onto the military base and stayed at the barracks. When my mother became pregnant, he decided to give it one last shot, thinking I was his child. My father left the military so that he could be more home support for me and my mother, thinking that being home would help the marriage. Spoiler alert, it did not. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Your mom's a piece of garbage, and I know you know this. That wasn't going to change anything. Your dad, he's not your official dad, but he was your dad to you growing up and there for you all these years, he is your dad, I'll be honest here. He did what he thought was best, but he was young and dumb, didn't know what the fuck to do. My father told me that when my mother and him separated, my mother told him the following statement, which I know is true because he said exactly how my mother would say it. Now listen to this, what dear old mommy said to him. I'm going to make your son hate you. He will never like you, and you'll never see him. I'm going to make sure he hates you forever. That's what your fucking mom said to this guy. Now here's a question that we're all wondering, and I certainly did when I read this earlier today. Why the hell didn't your dad say anything about this? Maybe because he was a minister or member of the clergy, he thought he'd go down the forgiveness route. I don't know, but still. My father began to tell me how my mother would tell me that my father was not coming to pick me up, even though she knew that he would never come. When my father didn't show up, my mother would say things to me like, you see what I'm talking about? He doesn't love you. He doesn't care about you. And when I would cry or be upset, then she would call me weak. I was only like 4 years old at the time, FYI. Your mom would literally tell you your dad's supposed to come pick you up, knowing he wasn't coming, and then when he didn't come up, trash him, and you'd cry because you're 4 years old and call you weak. Gee, let's see. What's the word for that? It starts with a C. It ends with a T. And rhymes with bunt. That's your fucking mother. I grew up hating my father and blaming him for everything. Well, thanks to your mother. I don't know if you can understand, but once my father told me the truth about everything, it was like seeing the puzzle for the first time. Like all the pieces fit together, and the picture was clear, and you could finally make sense of everything. I asked my dad at the age 38 years old, after all these years, why didn't he tell me the truth? Thank you. That's what we've all been wondering here. My father looked me dead in the eyes and said the following. He says here, a boy should never hate his mother. If I had to be the bad guy, then I will be the bad guy. Yeah, well, smack to your dad, even if he is a pastor or a minister. No. That ain't cool. Your father was a good man. Your mom was a piece of garbage. If there's any mother that deserves some hate, it's your fucking mother. And maybe he could have had you. God's sakes. I feel bad for your dad, but Jesus. SSM, I felt like a damn fool. I cannot believe that I fell for this crap all those years. You were a kid. Don't beat yourself up, man. You were a kid. And you had all these people telling you this. Even your own dad wouldn't say anything back then. It's all right. I apologized to my father and took back everything I ever said. My father gave me and my wife a hug and told me it was okay. He told me he needed some time to think about everything, but no matter what happened, I will always be his son, and I was still the best thing that came out of that marriage. Well, that's great. Now, obviously, I'm guessing that, you didn't see him a whole lot growing up, but eventually, I guess as you became an adult, then you obviously saw more of each other, because obviously you have a relationship. And frankly, you should always have a relationship with this man. Well, my wife and I returned home, and I realized there was still one more shoe to drop, and that was dealing with my mother. You mean more like disowning her? At this time, I had known about the situation for about 3 weeks, but I had not said one single word to my mother about it. And I want to make the following statement so that you can understand my childhood. This will give you insight into my mother and how she thinks. A few years ago, my sister came home for Christmas. Oh, sister, huh? Obviously from some other daddy. She told me when she first started therapy that her therapist told her that she doesn't know if she could help her or not because her trauma might be too severe and she didn't know if she's qualified to help someone like her. When my sister said this, I immediately started laughing out loud. I then explained to my sister that my therapist told me the exact same thing word for word. In other words, your mom is such a fucking harpy that she's done her damage. I want you to understand how cold my mother really is as a person. I think I have a pretty good idea, brother. I also want you to understand that I was never mad at my mother about the situation, and to this day, I still have no anger towards her or towards the situation. Smack! Are you fucking crazy? You're allowed to have some anger towards her. She's a rotten piece of shit. I know you are indifferent at this point, and the anger and hate is the opposite of love and all, and I'm glad you're not full of anger and you're indifferent towards her, because that's the real revenge. But still, I had already forgiven my mother in 10 minutes after I found out about this entire situation. My wife isn't happy about that, and my wife hates my mother. If my mother was dangling from a cliff, my wife would drop a brick on her. Okay. I don't like how your wife is micromanaging a lot of things in your life, and some of her type A personality, she needs to back off a bit. But I agree with your wife here. And yes, and I wouldn't give your mom a brick to knock her off the cliff. I'd give her a full, giant, heavy-ass cinder block. But being mad at my mother for what she did is like being mad at a shark for doing shark shit. Not the same comparison, dude. Your mother knew darn well what she was doing all that time. It was well calculated, planned out, all the lying, all the deceit, the manipulation, the hurting, and all that. I'm going to separate the animal kingdom of sharks with, human beings. She knew what she was doing. Mom was evil. I believe it was that following Tuesday or Wednesday, I got off work, called my mother, and told her we needed to talk. I arrived at her home and sat her down on the front porch and began to ask a series of questions in particular order. Think of it like an interrogation. I just wanted to be known, SSM. I didn't do this to get information out of my mother. I didn't do it because I thought she would tell me the truth. The only reason why I confronted her was because I just wanted to see her squirm for just a little bit. Well, you may get her to squirm, but if you think in her black heart she's going to care, good luck. I started off with just asking her, are you familiar with the name Jimmy such and such? SSM, I know my mother very well. I caught that woman completely off guard. I don't think my mother had heard that name in 38 years. Much like you always say, SSM women and accountability, and my mother has none. It went from, I don't know what you're talking about, or maybe I may have met somebody like that in the past with that name, to, he was only a friend, and he only gave me a ride in his car one time. Oh, he gave her a ride, all right. My mother even tried to tell me that I was being scammed, and how could I believe a scammer? Well, of course she's going to say all that. My mother's best line was one that made me literally laugh out loud because she told on herself and didn't even realize it. She said the following, Kevin, there is no way this man could be your father because I remember that when I slept with him, I was pregnant. Pregnant with you. I was about 5 to 6 months pregnant already at the time, so there's no way he could be your father. The dumb bitch is admitting she's a big cheater. But I guess in her mind, okay, I'll admit I'm a cheater, but at least still you're the other guy's son. I literally laughed at my mother's face and I told her, first of all, you just admitted that you're a cheater on my father. Secondly, you know admittedly that you were sleeping with another man while you were pregnant with me, and your belly doesn't make you look any better. You do know that, right? This isn't helping your case. I let my mother continue for about 15 minutes. Then I pulled out pictures of this man, and the look on her face completely changed. I'm sure it did. Did her devil horns pop out of her head yet? She continued to lie and make up more and more BS, crazy convoluted scenarios. Then I left her with no more wiggle room. I pulled out the DNA test itself. Before she could open her mouth, I told her that I already spoken with Jimmy / my biological father, and that he'd been down to see me and my family. Then I told her that I've already spoken to my dad and told him the truth. Okay, do you think there's going to be a shred of remorse from this woman? Place your bets. I then told my mother how much this hurt me. I told her that I had a half-brother on my biological father's side who passed away a few months ago and never got the chance to meet him. I told her I never got a chance to meet my grandparents on that side of the family. I told my mother how her actions hurt a lot of people in serious ways. Brother, she doesn't give a shit. That's who she is. My mother then got very quiet. Then she looked up, and I shit you not, SSM, she said the following. Okay, here we go. She says, was your father upset when he found out? ? And I responded with, of course, Dad was absolutely crushed. My mother responded with a giant smile on her face and said, that's great. Kevin, look, I know this bothers you. I know it hurts your feelings, but I don't care. I'm glad it hurts your father's feelings. I know you want me to feel bad, but I just don't. That was probably the most truthful thing your mom ever said to you, because she doesn't feel bad. She goes on, honestly, Kevin, you are being weak. Why are you even letting this bother you? I raised you to be stronger than that. If you want me to feel something, I know you want me to feel something, but I just don't. Back to that part about having anger towards your mom. It's certainly warranted. I believe she's totally truthful in everything she just said there. She doesn't feel anything. She doesn't feel any guilt, no remorse, because that's what sociopaths do. Not to mention she's a narcissist. She ruined lives. She doesn't care. But I'm glad what happens with you and her. My mother then gave me another half-hearted chuckle, called me weak one more time for good measure, and said that she can't believe that she raised such a weak person. I'd be like, bitch, well, here's the deal. Call me what you want, label me what you want, I'm out of your fucking life. SSM, I wasn't mad, I wasn't even upset. I just remember staring at my mother, shaking my head. I got up, gave my mother a hug, and kissed her on her forehead and told her I loved her, but we will never talk again. Well, I like the last thing you said, but I wouldn't give her a fucking hug or kiss and tell her I love her. You can't love someone like that. And I don't care if she gave birth to you and carried you 9 months. She's fucking evil. Shitting on you, calling you weak because you actually had a heart. I left my mother's house that day. It's been a few years now, and she's never tried to contact me, and she has never said I'm sorry. Of course, because she doesn't care. She's not sorry, and she doesn't love you. And I know everybody wants to believe that every mom out there will love their child. That is not true. By and large, if there's one woman a guy can count on in life, by and large, not always, is maybe, hopefully, their mother. But even then, many stories I've done here proven otherwise. I left my mother's house that day. It's been a few years now, and she's never tried to contact me, and she's never said she's sorry. The moral of the story is, DNA test your children regardless of what any woman tells you. And be very careful who you decide to lay down with and have children with, because these bitches are crazy. Okay, here's a question we all want to know. You're a father. You have children. Have you DNA tested them? I don't know if your type A wife would like that too much. I hope you practice what you preach, brother. And I'm assuming, yes, you have. And everything's okay. Because you did say you did that. I think you did that test with the kids in the school and all that. So, okay, never mind. You know, the funny thing about all this is both my fathers are upset with me because I no longer talk to my mother. Smack to both your dads. Why? Okay, I can see your minister father because he's in the forgiveness business. But the other guy? No. They keep telling me I should talk to my mom because they both keep telling me you only have one mother. Oh, you have a devil for a mother, the devil's daughter. You're better off without her. And that, gentleman, is a very abrupt ending to this crazy story here. And I wish there's a little more details here about after that, I maintain a relationship with both of them and things are great and blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming that's what's gone on and all that. But that's the abrupt ending we got. But the point is, guys, again, you don't get married when you're in the military. This type of crap happens. How you'd have to do DNA tests. You can't believe anything, sadly. And how there's some really rotten people out there. But at least your biological dad's lifelong quest to find you happened. So you've really helped him, and that's great. Unfortunately, by helping him, you've broken the heart of your dad, who's been your dad your whole life. But obviously, he's still your father, and you love him in a relationship, But and you now know, and it's important for you to know. But yeah, I would have nothing to do with your mother ever again, even when she's on her dying bed, and because she's a rotten piece of garbage. You saw right then and there, she was mocking you, mocking them, no remorse. I think those things she was saying 100% was truthful. She doesn't feel bad, she feels nothing. And sadly, there are people out there, So, bro, I appreciate you sharing the story. There's value here, and I really do wish you the best and your wife, and tell her to calm down the type A shit. But, you're not going to be able to change your type A personality, but you can change how you handle that. I think she went a little too far without your permission, but regardless, things turned out well. But still, you get my point about those type A personalities. I ain't never going to fucking date a type A personality check. I catch type A at all. It's like, whoosh, see ya. But that's just me. And oh yeah, P.S. My mom is type A personality. I grew up with that shit. Love my mom, but I don't know how my dad dealt with it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And you guys got a good story to share or question to ask me, send it to my wife, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And it's a good one. I'll definitely cover it. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.